With the release of Remnant 2 just around the corner, it's time to ask and answer a very important question. Which starting class is the best for you? Unlike most Souls-likes, your starting class has a huge bearing on your campaign, with all 5 of them having wildly different playstyles, as they have different weapons, different armor sets, and most importantly, different skills and abilities. So get comfy and get ready to take notes as we deep dive into each of the 5 starting classes and what they have to offer. In no particular order, let's start by looking at the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger is a master of firearm handling, reloading, and ammo conservation. They are a pure DPS archetype, and they focus primarily on the speed at which they fire and handle their guns. All classes have access to 3 basic skills and a prime perk. The prime perk and the first skill are unlocked as default, and you unlock the other 2 perks as you level up your archetype. Eventually, you can unlock more than the 5 starting archetypes, and you can even dual wield archetypes and mix and match skills, but we'll talk about that in another video. This is purely about the starting classes and which is best for you. So let's take a look at what the Gunslinger has to offer. Firstly, their passive prime perk allows them to automatically reload both of their firearms and grant them infinite ammo for a short period of time every time they use a skill. Their starter ability is Quick Draw. This skill will see you pull out your secondary weapon and instantly unload it, dealing critical damage split evenly to all enemies in range. You press the ability button to fire at all enemies within 25 meters, with rounds being divided among targets. Or you can even hold and release to deliver one massive powerful shot to a single target, which is really useful for taking down bigger enemies. The next skill you can unlock is Sidewinder, which increases your aim down sight movement speed and your draw and swap speed by 50%. And on top of this, cycling through weapons will automatically reload them for you, and this skill lasts for 12 seconds. Finally, the last skill that you unlock for the Gunslinger is Bullet Storm. This will increase your fire rate by 20%, your reload speed by 50%, and single shot weapons become fully automatic and kills instantly reload your current weapon, and this lasts for 20 seconds. The only 2 exceptions to single shot weapons are, instead of becoming fully automatic, bows and crossbows gain 15% critical chance and a 50% increased projectile speed. The Gunslinger is an amazing choice for players who want to remain heavily ranged focused and rarely have to worry about their ammo reserves. Please note you can only have 1 skill active at a time, so once you unlock multiple, you'll have to pick the one which best fits your playstyle. You will still need decent aim to get the most out of this class, and also at the start of the game they have no defensive or additional healing options, which means you need to be constantly aware of your positioning and where your enemies are at all times. However, if you get your head around this class, it can be devastatingly powerful. Next up, let's take a look at the Challenger. The Challenger is the closest thing to a tank. They are exceptional at close range combat as well as staying alive. Their goal is very simple: get as close as possible and then let loose with the damage. With the highest defenses of any archetype, they can take a beating and just keep going, and even if they die, their passive prime perk allows them to survive fatal damage and come back to life. This can only trigger once per rest, but it comes in so clutch for such a close quarters style archetype. Their weapon loadout consists of very high damage options, but to get the most out of it, you'll need to put yourself very close to the action, with the likes of very powerful but very inaccurate pump action shotguns. They are an excellent start for a variety of players because they are very tanky and have a lot of survivability options. Challengers start with the perk War Stomp, which creates a high impact tremor dealing 150 damage and additional stagger in a forward cone for up to 7.5 meters. Additionally, dealing damage in all directions if enemies are at point blank range. Though the Challenger has no direct healing, there are many healing options you can apply to any class in the game, which we'll be discussing in the upcoming gameplay tips video. The Challenger's other 2 skills that you unlock as you progress are the Juggernaut, which increases your movement speed, your melee attack speed, and your melee damage by a significant amount. And the final ability you unlock is Rampage, which has a similar effect but for ranged weapons. This will increase your fire rate, your reload speed, and your movement speed, and will increase your ranged damage more and more the more enemies you deal damage to and kill whilst you are in Rampage. And if you manage to get 10 stacks, you will go Berserk, which reloads your firearm and doubles the effects of Rampage for a further 15 seconds. I should also mention, as you'll have seen already, the area I'm currently in with my Challenger is wildly different to the area I was in with the Gunslinger. However, I'm not factoring this into the starting class, as this is completely randomized, and any class can start in any of the 4 or 5 starter areas. You will eventually get to visit all of the areas with any character, so don't worry about this when picking your starting class. Next up, let's take a look at the Handler. Though I personally have the most playtime with the Gunslinger, the Handler may actually be my favourite class. They're a jack of all trades, they bring a little bit of everything to the fight, most importantly, a dog. This is the only class that has a companion with them throughout the entire game. The Handler themselves can support, they can provide damage, and they can also boost the damage and stats of the rest of your party. And they always have their trusty companion by their side, so they are never alone, with their dog running into the fray, soaking up all the damage whilst dealing massive amounts of damage as well. And their prime perk is fantastic. If the Handler goes down and the dog is able to, he will sprint over and revive you. The Handler is a great choice for players that want to play solo but have the benefits of co-op, but also for players that enjoy bringing the overall utility to a full team. That's right, there is co-op in this game. But we will be talking about the co-op features, dual classes, and other gameplay tips as I mentioned previously in the next video. For now, let's focus on what the Handler has to offer. And their prime perk, as already mentioned, is that their companion will run over and attempt to revive them when they fall in combat, essentially giving them multiple lives. The Handler isn't as straightforward to use as the Gunslinger or the Challenger because of the fact that you do have to give your companion commands to maximize effectiveness. So let's talk about how these commands work. All 3 of the unlockable Handler abilities have 3 different effects. 2 of these effects are shared throughout all 3 abilities. If you single press your skill, your companion will run to the targeted location and engage enemies. Your dog has way more health and defense than you, so this can be used to send him ahead into rooms before you to check for enemies and automatically engage them on sight. And by double tapping the skill, your dog will run back to your side. As for the primary use for your skills and the actual buffs, if you hold the button down, that's what will release the actual effect. So, for your initially unlocked skill, Guard Dog, if you hold the skill button down, you will tell your companion to let out an intimidating howl, which reduces all damage that allies take by 15%, and also makes your dog generate additional threat for the next 20 seconds, drawing the aggro of all nearby enemies. The second skill you can unlock is Support Dog, which will make your companion's howl grant 2% of max health regeneration per second, and increases the movement speed of all allies within 20 meters for 25 seconds. And the third and final skill is Attack Dog, which will increase all damage done by all allies within 20 meters by 20% for 20 seconds. So the Handler is a fantastic all-round archetype for someone who doesn't want to specialize too heavily in one specific area. Next up, let's take a look at the Hunter. The Hunter are a pure ranged damage archetype. They are the master of long range and precision-based gameplay. They have almost nothing in the way of defense, but everything in the way of offense. They have the special ability to mark targets, which can be done in multiple ways and allows all players in your team to see all enemies through walls and any other obstacle. And marking targets will also boost the crit chance and crit damage for themselves and their entire team. Their starting weapon loadout does have more requirement on aiming than anyone else, so the Hunter really is for hardcore FPS fans. They have the highest skill ceiling to master, but also probably the highest potential damage output. They are probably the most difficult class to play and master, and solo you are going to have a very tough time until you unlock some survivability options later on in the game. The Hunter's prime perk, Dead to Rights, will extend the duration of their active skill by dealing ranged weak shot damage, meaning that in bigger fights, as long as you are really accurate, you can make your skills last nearly indefinitely. So let's take a look at them skills now. You start off with the Hunter's Mark. This will cast an aura within 35 meters of you that will automatically apply Mark to all enemies. And this isn't a stationary aura, it will move with you for the duration, highlighting more and more enemies as you come across them. Whilst you are under the effects of Hunter's Mark, you gain 15% bonus ranged and melee damage, and your crit chance against all marked enemies is increased by 15% for you and all allies. As I say, this lasts for 25 seconds, but is extended every time you hit a weak spot. Next up, you will unlock Hunter's Focus. Instead of automatically marking all enemies around you, you will mark an enemy almost instantly the second you aim at them. And continuously aiming down your sights uninterrupted without shooting for 1 second or more causes you to enter the focused state. This reduces your weapon spread, your recoil, and your sway by 75%, grants 25% increase to your range damage and your ranged weak spot damage, and an extra 10% ranged crit chance. On top of the additional 15% crit chance you get for aiming at marked enemies anyway, this lasts 20 seconds, and even when it expires, you will stay focused for up to a further 10 seconds. As you can see already, these abilities are going to be much harder to get your head around and utilize, but when you do, there is almost no limit to the insane amounts of damage you'll be able to pump out. And finally, the last ability you unlock is the Hunter's Shroud. It lasts 15 seconds, and whilst you are shrouded, enemies will become less aware of you and it will be harder for them to hit you. Attacking or activating any mod or skill will instantly exit Shroud. However, you will automatically Shroud again after 1.15 seconds if no offensive actions have been performed. And every time you exit Shroud, you will automatically mark all enemies within 10 meters, and you'll be granted the ambush state for 2 seconds. In ambush, your ranged and melee damage is increased by 50%, diminishing over the 2 seconds. So you want to be very quickly flitting in and out of ambush, dealing that extra 50% damage, and then going back into Shroud again, effectively becoming a ninja assassin for as long as this effect lasts. As you can see, the Hunter is going to be very hard to get your head around, and definitely the most demanding class, but will be incredibly rewarding for those who do. Now let's move on to the last, but certainly not the least, and take a look at the Medic. On the surface, the Medic is definitely the easiest to explain. It's the healer of the bunch. They are well-rounded and ideal for keeping themselves and their allies in tip-top fighting shape. Their abilities heal large chunks of damage in and out of fights, and they are highly desirable for any party or even in solo. Their loadouts let them lay down tons of fire without the need to reload, and their focus on relic use and regeneration ensures that they are almost always able to get the team back into the fight. I don't think I have mentioned the relics yet, so let me quickly discuss your starting relic, and I will delve into the other relics in the next video. Effectively, early game you can view your relic as your healing potions, but this can change and be modified heavily. For now though, for the purposes of this video, your relic is basically your healing. All classes start with 3 relic charges. However, the Medic's prime perk means that the more healing they do to themselves, the more they can use their relic. As you can see, the Medic has a green bar above my health bar, and this indicates how much healing has been done so far. When that green bar maximizes, I will regain one of my relic charges and be able to heal even more. So, especially when playing solo, a really good strategy is to deliberately let yourself get quite damaged and then use your skill to heal yourself back to full. In doing so, you will significantly increase your prime perk bar and eventually restore a charge to your relic. Now that you know how that works, let's take a look at their skills. You start off with Wellspring. The Medic channels healing energy into their fists, punching a hole in the ground to create a 3-meter AoE healing spring which restores 10 health per second and greatly increases your Blight decay rate. Blight is one of the negative debuffs you can receive in this game. We'll look at Blight and the other debuffs in another video. This lasts for 15 seconds, meaning you will restore 150 health over the 15 seconds. Bearing in mind, most classes only start with 100 health, so this is a full heal for everyone. And you can cast this every single minute, so this is very, very frequent. Next up, you will unlock Healing Shield. This is a very quick temporary heal to use in a pinch. You expel healing energy to shield all allies within 25 meters for 100% of their max health for 10 seconds, effectively doubling everyone's health. This is great if a massive enemy is charging up to use a really powerful attack. And whilst shielded, allies will also regenerate 20% of their max health over the duration. This is more niche but comes in very clutch in certain situations. And finally, you will unlock Redemption. When using Redemption, the Medic will unleash a 30-meter shockwave that revives downed allies and restores 50% of max health over 10 seconds. You can continue to hold the skill button down to heal more and more health over a longer period of time. This can be used just to heal everyone. However, the really significant thing about Redemption is that it's an AoE revive. However, please do note that allies can only be revived by this once every 3 minutes, or upon resting at a world stone. As you can see, the Medic has a huge amount of utility and is fantastic in solo, but really excels when working with a team. That is it for the 5 starting classes and a little bit about the areas they start in. As I say, we'll discuss some more of the in-depth mechanics, such as dual classes, gameplay elements, and other amazing features in the next video. Let me know what class you're thinking of starting as and why. Personally, even though most of my playtime is as the Gunslinger, I think I'm going to reroll as Handler because I just love having a dog companion. And my friends, that's it for this video, so all that I have left to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.